a dry run for a real nice climate summit, or when we get better prepared with our videos and live streaming, and when we can meet in large numbers, because this right here is not an individual. It's like Islam. Islam is not an individual, thing. It's a collective thing. You can do Islam by yourself, but it's 27 times better when you pray in Jamaat than when you pray by yourself. I'd just like to start by reading a ayat and Islam's relation with the subject of climate change and the Muslim responsibility. Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one unit of creation? Before we clove them asunder, we made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe? You know, a lot of Muslims miss this ayat, but we know the theory of the Big Bang theory, right? And the expanding universe. And we know the modern ideas about black holes or planets being sucked and drawn in and concentrated in what they're calling black holes. But now, if you look at this ayat, do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one unit of creation? Before we clove them asunder, before we exploded it. So maybe the Bible don't have the Big Bang theory, but definitely the Quran has it. It's right here. It's just, and we read right past it a lot of times because it uses ancient words like clove asunder. You know, if they say exploded, people would get it better. But the universe was one solid mass, the whole universe. But now that universe was concentrated. Now, first of all, get to the Creator. The Creator created the universe. It wasn't just running around by itself, you know. But no, this thing is here, is created, and then Allah clove it asunder. I don't want to stray, but there's the idea, and then created everything from water. So every living thing, that's what it says, is water-based. You know, even our bodies, everything that we see is water-based. And the planet itself is 72%, 78%, something of water. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have told us the origins of creation. Now they have also the theory about the collapsing universe, that it'll eventually collapse again into another black hole or what have you. And then, bam, it'll maybe explode again. Now, since the Creator has been here all the time, we don't know, the subject of walas by the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created time. You know, time didn't exist. That was a time when there was no time. I don't want to get off too philosophical, but that was a time when there was no time. And Allah created time. And you could tell in the Quran to keep check on the days and, and the months and the years. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say. And now we would like to get into the program technically. If anyone travels on a road in search of knowledge, Allah will cause him to travel on one of the roads of paradise. The angel will lower their wings in their great pleasure with one who seeks knowledge. The inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, and even the fish in the deep waters, will ask forgiveness for the learned man. These are the hadith dealing with knowledge and a learned man. We know the main one that one knowledgeable man is more valuable than 1,000 common worshippers. You know, some hadiths say ignorant worshippers, but it don't mean that. Good worshippers, it's just but one knowledgeable man is harder on shaitan, right, than 1,000 worshippers. It also goes on to say, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his angels and the dwellers of the heavens and the earth, and even the ant in the hole and the fish send blessings upon the preacher of good to the people, the preacher of good to the people. Of course, we get to the idea of climate improvement, you know, making a better world. You know, the biggest sewer in the world is now the oceans. And when you look, when you listen that fish are dying of starvation because they're eating little plastic in the ocean. And then they feel full, but they don't have nothing in themselves but plastic. Camels are out, the ones in the desert, that big hump on their back, and sometimes it's held in their stomach. They're eating plastic now. You know, the plastic that get blown in trees or in bushes. They're eating that. And they take a lump out of the camel sometimes, it's several pounds, or actually many kilos. They're eating that plastic, but it don't digest well. So it concentrates. So they have all of these theories about there's these little microplastics floating all around in the ocean. And the fish that think that there's something to eat are digesting those. The coral reefs, the Great Barrier Reef, all of those great reefs that used to be full of color and what have you are dying. I mean, all of this because of humanity. So we see that the world that we're living in and the new administration, I want you to look at the new administration that they have. They haven't even mentioned climate control. I mean, they've mentioned it, a little bit. But we're in a situation now to where this takes drastic action. We're in a drastic situation, right? And everything that we do adds and piles on more and more and more. And the process that we're going through in the earth is accelerating more and more and more. And now the common people are gaining knowledge, but the common people also need a mechanism, a structure or organization, a change in life. And don't put a lot of hope in the people changing, right, on their own or for light reasons. After all, this is just in America. If it's 325,000 deaths in America now, and people still hollering about, we're not going to stay at home, right? We going to Christmas, and they just had Thanksgiving, and now they paying the price for Thanksgiving. They're going to pay the price for everything. Why? Because they don't have the strength to change. If you think about a movement or organization that don't upgrade itself, that don't flow with the times, that don't improve, even a doctor have to go back, at least that was years ago, and get updated every 5 years. Now it may be 2 years with the way things are improving. We don't say improve, with the way things are accelerating. Okay, so now, Sabbihisma rabbikal ala, alladhi kalaka fasawa, alladhi kadara fahada. So this is glory and sanctity and proclamations to Allah, to proclaim Allah's sanctity, to glorify Allah. Sabbihisma rabbikal a'la. Rabb, we'll talk about this concept of Rabb in a minute or two, but it says that Allah, in the name, glorify the name of Allah, the most exalted. He who created and perfects and makes things, and he who formulates and guides things. And that means he develops the capabilities of all things. So the earth was created, right, with the ability to cleanse itself. When I was younger, all the water that ran in streams, or when I was in California, we used to be up in the hills a lot, and you could see the snow in the hills up near Reno and all of that, and that melted snow would come down through streams. Fresh fish in the streams. We'd swim in the streams. We'd also would drink the water. Normally, we just drink the water. It was fresh and cold, and we drank the water. You know, it was automatic. In fact, you know, people drank water out of streams and lakes all the time before. We just started getting this so-called purified water and all this just recently. Water just started coming out of faucet, you know, 150 years ago. Before that, you just went out and carried your bucket, or you had a pump like we did in front of our house in the country, and you just pumped the water. That's the way, you know, that's the way you got things. So it's saying that those streams could purify themselves every quarter mile. You know, when the water ran in the stream, there's sand, and if you go out here to Blue Plains, whatever they have it, you'll see that they have this water that we drink. It goes through one of the last treatments is sand, because sand purifies things. You know, tayammum, a little sand, you know, it purifies things. So proclaim and sanctify Allah's name. Sawa fasawa, he straightened, he duly shaped and made equal, made good and put in order. He smoothed everything out. And then kadara, from takdir, from qadr, the qadr of Allah, it just means that Allah gave everything its determination, its capabilities. So what does that mean? That means that the earth was given the capability of self-purification. When you go back in time before chemicals and all of that stuff, and before plastics, which wasn't long ago, no matter how filthy water got, just the water sitting in some pool or somewhere, it became polluted. Well, that same water would be drawn up by the sun, right? It would be drawn up in a mist, like, you know. Then, as it collected in the clouds, it would come back down as rain, as snow, sleet, or hail. You know, it changed forms from a liquid to a mist to a solid, or a liquid to a gas, again to a solid. Okay, when it was taken up into the atmosphere, it was distilled. Now, we didn't start getting what you call acid rain until 40 or 50 years ago. Acid rain was so bad some years ago that it was disintegrating gravestones. Acid rain means that rain that was taken up pure and clean, you know, and distilled in the higher atmosphere. When it came down, it was coming through these clouds of pollution and filth and picking up all that acid as it came down. By the time it hit things, it was caving in roofs. It was rotting things, because the water that was coming down on the way, it was pure, and by the time it got down, it came through this polluted environment. Okay, So we see that Allah is al-Khaliq. He created the heavens, He created the earth, He created you and I, and He put us in this environment so that we can, everything that we need for subsistence, especially physically, is right here on earth. We don't need nothing from nowhere else, right? Okay, now what that means is that now I can give you an example. In the Bible it said that God gave man dominion over the fowl of the air, the fish of the sea, and that everything that creep and crawl on the planet. Okay, the Quran has a different view. It don't say that Allah gave him dominion. In all of our readings, Allah is a caliph, istiklafa, that Allah made the human being a custodian of the planet. Now, in Christian ideology, they're talking more and more and more about stewardship over domination. Remember the ideas, we got to dominate the earth. We got to dominate the Indians. We got to take this and we got to make this. And one of the great signs of civilization was the taller the buildings are, the more civilization it was. That's not the sign of civilization. And now it's becoming a sign of ignorance, technically. Because before, everything that we built, when we built cities, we built those cities in a real way out of real material. And that material, when it finished, it just turned back into what it was. It decomposed what it was before. But now, right, when you build plastic or make plastic, they say it takes 10,000 years for it to decompose. And now the oceans is full of plastic, microplastics. And when you look in the oceans and the other parts of the earth, man has so forgotten his mission and how he's here and what he's supposed to do. This guy is trying to catch so many fish, he's making things extinct, like dolphins. Dolphins can't breathe underwater. They're just mammals. They can't, and they get caught in them nets and they drag them down. And now we got to stop fishing in this area, stop fishing in that area, because what? Species are becoming extinct so fast, it's unbelievable. I don't remember the numbers, but you can hear them every day. They saying, well, these animals, these plants, this is becoming extinct. And they have movements to protect the earth from that. By the fig and by the olive and by the mount blessed, and by this city most secure and peaceful. We have indeed created man in the best of molds. Then we revert him to the lowest of the low, except those who believe and do good or do good deeds. Now we're getting to some of what our responsibility is, while we're talking about the beautiful creation that was given to us with perfect balance. Balance and justice. Mizan, when you look at justice, you'll find Mizan. When you look at balance, you'll find Mizan. The scales that weigh us on the day of judgment, they're from Mizan, because there's a balance. What did we talk about generations ago? The earth had perfect balance. The earth had perfect balance because it was created that way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now this is saying, we have indeed created man in the best mold, the best shape, the best taqweem. The human being has the more ability. Scientists even say just a hand that a human being is one of the most beneficial parts of his creation. Horses don't have hands. A lot of things don't have. Well, the monkey got a hand. But anyway, just the hand. When you mix the mind and the hand together, you can make tools. And when you can make tools, you can alter your environment, right? And as time goes on, man has so altered tools and altered its environment to now the earth and the creation is in imbalance. It's not balanced. And that's where we come in, and we'll get to that in a minute. But we have the ability to do something to change the environment in which we live. Why? Because we have indeed created man in the best shape, the best takwim, the best form, the best structure. The human being, you and I, we've been created like that. Now, other animals, there's no other animal or mammal in creation that can solve the problems that we have. You know why? They didn't do it. And Allah didn't give them the ability to do that. So Allah gave the ability to clean up the earth to the one that had the potential to mess it up. And that's you and I. That's the process of evolution. We evolve to that state. Now, we have indeed created man in the best molds or the best shape. Then we revert him to the lowest of the low. In other words, the human being can, in Christianity, the human being is lower than an angel, kind of like, you know. And angels have the ability to resist. You know, like Satan was said to be a fallen angel. I don't want to get all off, but Satan was said to be a fallen angel. We don't have no fallen angels in Islam because they didn't rebel, because they couldn't rebel. Allah didn't put that key in them or didn't program them to rebel, so they couldn't do what they was not programmed for, right? They just couldn't do it. Now, here you and I, the human being, we can rise higher than an angel because the truth that we find and discover and are guided by our religious guidance, that guidance is the key to solving the problem. We can use it and be above angels, or we can sink. It says we can revert you. That means send you back to the lowest of the low. That means now you're going to be below other animals. You're going to be below everything. Almost. Why? Because other animals don't have a judgment because they can't do nothing wrong. They're guided by instincts and smells and sounds, and that's what they programmed by, right? Okay, so they can't do anything wrong, therefore they're not responsible for this earth. They haven't been given the khilafah. Now, if you've been reading a lot of Christian literature, you'll see that they're changing from domination to stewardship. And remember, we as Muslims are not alone anymore in this. Literally, the whole world is witnessing a change in their environment. And the whole world wants to move toward a transformation, transforming it back to what it was. See, you can't get it no better than it was in the beginning. You know, I mean, everything working in perfect balance. Okay? Or in, as the Quran say, due proportion. I mean, you, the earth, the whole environment. All right. So, except those who believe and do good deeds, they will have a reward without ceasing. Okay, we created with the best taqweem. We can rise to the highest of the high or the lowest of the low. Except those, or we'll be reverted back to the low, except those who believe and do good, and they will have a reward unceasing. Now we'll go back to a few hadith. So exalted is the righteous, learned person that he will even cause the fish to rejoice. In applying these hadith to the context of modern time, we believe that this is because such a person would enjoin goodness toward Allah's creation and pursue a clean water policy. In today's world, we hear much about the pollution of the air, the land, and the water. Most environmentalists believe that the solution lies in using man's technology to clean up lakes, streams, rivers, toxic landfills, and other sources of pollution. However, we believe a bit differently. In order to be most effective in cleaning our environment, we must go to the root of the problem. What's the root of the problem? The human being, right? Everybody want to invent something to clean up the air, to clean up the water, right? The water didn't mess itself up. The air didn't mess itself up. Who messed it up? The human being. So if you want to clean up the environment, you want to clean up the water and the air, you got to go clean up the man first. And that's called tazkiyah bil. Now, I want us to observe clearly in the environment about our nafs. How difficult is it going to be to clean up the man? How far away from reality, loving his brother, people won't even wear a mask because I don't want to wear a mask. Well, wear it for me, brother. You know what I mean? I don't want, you know what I mean, none of that stuff, right? So if you can't wear the mask for yourself, you feel like you've been underprivileged and over-policed, you know, is a type of insanity that 325,000 people in America, according to what they say, have already died. Of course, you can tell who most of them are. Maybe that's why they ain't no hurry. Because between the Negro, the American Indians, and Latinos passing away, you know, there's a lot of suspicion going on in the world. We don't have time to go into that. They're not conspiracy theories. They start to make sense. You know what I mean? They talk about a conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy reality. You mean you got something going around that most of the people that die is black and American Indians, right? And Latinos? And 3 or 4 white folk. We're not racist, but something is beginning to look bad. And the white folks is the one don't want to wear no mask. I don't want to wear no mask because you going against my freedom. That's the difference between freedom and responsibility, or rights and responsibilities. The human being has more responsibility than anything in the earth because he have more ability. Right? So he can demand his rights. Other things cannot. We can go under the water in a submarine, up in the air with the birds, right? We can cut down all the forests, but we can also replant all the forests too, you know. So tazkiyah bil nafs, that's not the subject today, but you have to realize that in order to clean up the earth, we have to really clean up the human being. Because first of all, the people drilling all the oil wells now, I hope they don't sell this one little piece of Alaska still pristine, just like it was. But you leave it up to Don gonna sell those oil drillers, and then they're gonna drill in the Arctic, and once it's dirty, how you gonna clean up the Arctic? You know what I mean? No, we're going to have protections. He ain't had no protections on down there in Texas in the Gulf, right? Oil was shooting out of there. When I went down to visit, I took my family down. We was in Florida, then we went over near Pensacola. We went a lot of places. But when we was in the Gulf, at that time, this several years ago, you know the tide have a water line. It was a water line all along the beach and the rocks and everything. It was oil stuck to them. And that water, it looked like you run a bathtub of water and then you just pour a quart of oil in that. That's what the water looked like down there okay. So we already know how they're going to protect everything, right? How many oil spills, and right? They're not going to protect anything because it's all about money. Now we're getting into greed, desire, and money, and what have you. Even during this virus they got now, they said this Bezos guy, somebody, Amazon, he could give right now 80,000 people that work for him and $80,000, and he'd had the same amount of money that he had when he got started, when this virus got started a year ago. You think he's going to do it? Absolutely not. Why? Because of greed. What are you going to do with $1 billion? What are you going to buy? An aircraft carrier? You can't buy your way into heaven. You can't do anything but just get more and more greed, right? Now this is where tazkiyah bil nafs come in, because the human being have to develop a sense of community that is not just me being helped, but I'm going to share in my, it's like certain communities out in the countryside, they help each other build barns. They build a barn in one day because everybody go get, it costs you $500,000 now, or maybe even $1 million to build a good barn. But they get their stuff together and they put it together and they build it in one day. Why? Because they know how to build barns as good as anybody, and they do it in a collective way. Well, for instance, if we're going to prevent all this destruction of the environment, what about the people that have jobs? So if we want to rescue the fish, we have to have a moratorium on fish. Let's say we have to have a 5-year moratorium on wild fish. If you want to raise your own fish somewhere, you could raise them, okay? But what about all the fishermen that don't have no money? The ones that have money have to share their money, right? Or the government has to regulate things to where they share their money. You know, the middle class in America that kicked in big in the 40s, the 50s, 60s, and the 70s. After that, it started declining. But the middle class came from high wages and what else? 94% tax bracket? It was 91%, 96 or 94, something like that. That means those people that made big money, they was way up there in that tax bracket. And then they could help with schools, they could help build better universities, they could do whatever they wanted, and they could help me and you because they had the money. Now, what Warren Buffett said, he pays less taxes than his secretary. This is insanity. This is what they say in the news, They write books about it. His secretary, pay more taxes than he do. And he's a up to billionaire, whatever he is. Okay. So now we're getting into tazkiyah bil nafs, purification of the self. Tazkiyah, the same word for zakah and all of that. Zakat, that's what, It means to cleanse and purify. You cleanse your wealth by giving some of it away. And that's a pillar of Islam. Okay, so now if we have oil workers and they want to drill all the oil and pump it down to the Gulf of Mexico from Canada, right? Then instead of destroying the environment, they're going to have some income, some new training, and all of those things. Well, what this means is, in reality, we have to design a new world that we want to live in. Same thing we've been always talking about. It's new world time. The world that we design. So that means that the human being that think like us, they have to in some way get together and visualize the world they want to live in. Right? The type of system that they want. They don't want that old stuff that never was meant for you and you, like so-called democracy. Y'all remember those Thomas Jefferson letters we would, that we would read sometimes to some of these demonstrations? And Thomas Jefferson had a long section in there on slavery, but he could never put it in the Declaration of Independence. Why? Because some of the rich guys like himself, the farmers, and all of the other people up in the North and the South, and industrialists didn't want him to put that in there, right? And if you look right now, they had a movie about Abraham Lincoln, and he was about to kill himself almost, trying to get the 13th Amendment. Y'all remember, anybody see that movie? The only thing about the 13th Amendment was, what does it say? From now on, it ain't going to be nobody held in bondage because, or mistreated because of past slavery, except those that have been convicted of a crime. Now you can see why the police is always in our neighborhood. Why was the chain gangs in the South always full, always full? Because they had little petty stuff. It's nigger catching time. They were just like the slave laws. Remember the books we just breezed through, the titles that the modern police setup is designed based off old slave patrols. That's what they're doing. Okay. But for white folks that own property, not poor white folks, that Constitution was a big deal. It was a whole transformation from kingship, landed gentry, and the priestly class. It was a big deal getting away from that. You know what I mean? And in what they call liberty for them, hey, they had the freedom to do what they want, right? Especially with me and you. I don't want to get off in this subject, but I want you to think about the Declaration of Independence and how it talks. If government don't live up to these, every man is created equal, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right? And if you can't get that from the government, then you have a right or responsibility to change that government. Isn't that what the Declaration of Independence says? And the same people, you didn't see a whole lot of poor people at the Constitutional Convention. Ben Franklin, he was the first millionaire in America. Thomas Jefferson, go down there and look at what he used to own. George right down there in Mount Vernon, them boys was having money, right? They were the wealthy people. The governors and all of that, okay. So they wanted independence from King George so they could get more money, so they could get more powerful, right? And so, but they didn't have you and me fixed in there. Why? Because they have all those flowery discourses about the Declaration of Independence, but what happened when the Constitution when they wrote the Constitution. Same people wrote the Constitution. But the Constitution now, they got authority. And now they the boss, and they sound like the boss. Right? Yeah, this is what you got to do. Here's Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the states said, hey, no, man. And they come up with the Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments, before they would accept the Constitution, they had to put in, wait a minute, man. You can't do us the same way they did us. You can't quarter troops. You can't take our property without a bill of fare. You know, you can't do all this stuff. I got a right, you know, same right Peter Zinger had, the right to speak. So they put that stuff in there. What was the first rebellions they had in America? 1792, the Whiskey Rebellion and Shays Rebellion. That was white folks without property. They're trying to make them pay taxes on stuff. Anyway, we have to visualize the world, and we don't have to limit ourselves in the visualizing the world that we want to live in. We have now the technical ability to reconstruct, to clean up, and to manage and make this earth as beautiful as it was when Allah gave it to us. We can do that now. But there has to be a process of evolution in the meantime. We have to evolve from, I don't know if y'all remember the talk on Homo erectus technocratus. That's just, you know, Negro made up name, almost like Kingfish made it up. Homo erectus technocratus means that the human being walks upright. He walks upright. He has technology, technocratus, right? But he's a Neanderthal in everything else he does, right? The human being, you might as well just give him a club and he just beat the ones that's got a big club. They're going to beat the ones without it. The human being has not evolved ethically and spiritually from bygone days. We've only evolved technically, right? There's been increase in lifespan and medicine and what have you. But what's that when so many people are miserable? You know, like miserable. I mean, diseases, itches, psychological problems. And just imagine our environment is causing most of those problems. So the big struggle is you and I, the human being. That we want to, well, let's get to what we want here. But now remember, in today's world, we hear much about the pollution of the air, the land, and the water. Most environmentalists believe that the solution lies in using technology. Technology, we can use it. But Homo erectus technocratus is not going to use his technology. This dummy, just imagine, employment is a big problem in the Western world today, right? Unemployment. But greed makes them make robots that makes the need of the human being extinct. Artificial intelligence, all of that. Well, we won't need the human being. Now, this old dumb human being, he'll knock himself out because he keep on working on these robots another 3 or 4 years, learning robots. You know, they did an experiment with one of these modern artificial intelligence. So he had him play the great chess player, and the artificial intelligence robot lost the first game only because he programmed to learn. So now how long it takes me and you to learn, and how long do it take him to learn? And whatever he's programmed with, which would be most of the things people know, he learned how to beat the guy in chess from then on. He never lost after that. Because he knows all of the possibilities, all right in his little gadget up there, right? So the human being, is making this artificial intelligence creature that just in a few years, the creature will say, shoot, we don't need this guy. We can have a real beautiful earth. All the other animals work together, right? They work together, they eat each other, they die, they do all of that. It's only the human being, the ones that made us. Let's get rid of him, right? And the human being is not as fast, is not as sharp as the artificial intelligence they have now. Just imagine in 10 years and 20 years and da-da-da-da-da. Everybody now can do everything that they used to do, take 10 years to do on their little phone. You know, I almost feel guilty because if I want to look up climate change, all I got to do is type climate change in the thing. And I can get 40 articles or 50 good articles. I don't even have to go to the library no more. You know, as a so-called teacher, you got to go down and go to the library all the time and check out your books, and right? You don't have to go to no library anymore. They got encyclopedia. They got all of that online, right? You don't have to go out of your house anymore. No. That human being, that technology will not reform itself. That's where we get to what our job is. Name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. It is He who taught Quran. He has created man. He has taught him speech and intelligence. The sun and the moons follow courses exactly computed. And the herbs and the trees both alike bow in adoration. And the firmament has He raised high, and He has set up the balance of justice in order that you may not transgress due balance. That's what Allah is saying, and the Quran gave it to us 1,400 years ago. I'll just read a little more. So establish weight and justice, and fall not short of in the balance. It is He who has spread out the earth for His creatures. Therein is fruit and date palms, producing spats enclosed in dates. Also corn and its leaves and stalk for fodder, and sweet-smelling plants. Then which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? So Allah is telling us in Quran 1,400 years ago that He has created all of this, and He made the sun, moon, and stars to compute the time. And it used the word computed. Now, this translation of Quran was Yusuf Ali, 1937. But the language, everything is set up on the rotation of the earth and the seasons, right? And all of that. And Allah gave that to us to compute the time and to get ready for Hajj, right? And to know when to plant and all of those types of things. Okay, but down here it says, and the firmament He has raised high, and He has set up the balance of justice, mizan, wazan, in order that you may not transgress due balance. Tagut means a stream that overflows. Tagut means like Pharaoh. He became excessive. Now the question is, have the human being exceeded the limits? Has he become excessive today? Okay. Allah has promised to those among you who believe and work righteous deeds that he will of a surety grant them in the land inheritance of power, as he granted it to those before them, that he will establish in authority their religion, the one which he has chosen for them, and that he will change their state after the fear in which they live to one of security and peace. They will worship me alone and not associate aught with me. If any do reject faith after this, they are rebellious and wicked. It just goes on to say, so establish regular prayer, give regular charity, obey the messenger, that you may receive mercy. Never think that the unbelievers are going to frustrate Allah's plan on earth. Their abode is the fire, and it is indeed an evil refuge. Yastaklifanahum. That means inheritance of power from Khalifa. Istaklifa, again, the words that are used here in Arabic, means caliphate, to establish in authority. Right? One's going to give us power and the authority and to establish peace and justice. That's saying that our mission is at these times that Allah is going to reestablish us in a situation where we will have the power, the authority to, as his Khalifa, the one that came after Allah made Adam the Khalifa, all humanity. Then there's caliphs of the Prophet. That's why they used to call Abu Bakr Khalifat al-Rasul. You're the vicegerent of Rasulullah, of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in other words. So in another ayat, when it talks about that Allah is going to create this human being in the earth and will place him in the earth, and they say, this is the angels are saying, you're going to put in a guy that can make mischief and shed blood in the earth. And Allah tells them, I know what you know, but I know what you know not. In other words, I know when I give this guy power and authority in the land, he's going to get out of hand. He's going to act up. But I also put in something with him, with this authority, right? The ability to do good. And he can do more good. Does anybody remember the hadith on the learned and the ignorant? The ignorant, the wrong of the ignorant one is subservient to the right that a good man do. See, not put it this way. A person that's really ignorant can do just regional, local wrong. But a person that have knowledge can do very serious wrong, right? But a person that have knowledge also can do unlimited good and unlimited right. This is what the Quran is telling us. And never think that the unbelievers are going to frustrate Allah's plan on earth. Their abode is the fire, and is indeed an evil refuge. So we have the gift, we have the authority, we've been given language, everything that we've went over. We've been given the language, we've been given the ability, right, to re-regulate the world in which we're living, to change the world, or remake the world, or readjust the world, or revert the world. All of those words, reconstruct, rebuild, reorganize, we can do it because Allah gave us that ability. That if we could mess it up, we could clean it up. But the only problem is you and I. When I say you and I mean the human being. The only problem in fixing the earth is the human being's inability to even want to fix it. They got crackpots denying, oil spills, denying, they got permafrost. See, they got so much stuff. We got to get busy in a hurry because this boy is crazy. It don't take no genius to look at the world we're living in right now. Trump just talking about criminals. He just let 26 of his criminal friends. They are real technical criminals. He ain't gave nobody in the federal penitentiary this there by mistake, and they done did a lot of time. He ain't let none of them go. He just let his homeboys go. And the earth, hey man, this thing has degenerated so much that it could go beyond. It's like on a voyage you go on, you can go out so far. If it's 3,000 miles to Europe, if you go out 1,000 miles on a voyage, you can turn around and come back. But if you go 1,500 miles, that's halfway there. There's no sense of coming back. You just keep going no matter what the problem is, right? Because you're beyond the point of no return. After you get 1,501 miles, right, and there's 3 miles to go, you might as well keep going, right? Imagine inertia, cars going. When I was a kid, people have babies in the car. When everybody hit the brakes, they would hold out their hand for the little kid. They would automatically do it, just hold out their hand. Because the inertia, the little kid keep going and bam, all into the windshield, right, from inside, right? So we talk about inertia all the time. When the police is waiting for a speeder, they wait at the bottom of the hill out on the highway. I go to California and back all the time. The police is always waiting at the bottom of the hill, never waiting at the top. Why? Because nobody's speeding at the top. When they going downhill, they're going to pick up, and there he is. He's going to get them all the time. It's the weight. It's the inertia. It's the motion. As these things develop in our society, say like the climate, we have to fix it because we don't know how far in the climate the point of no return is. You see what I mean? Before the earth is so degraded, so destabilized, so deharmonized, right, that you can't get it back. But remember what Allah's saying. So we got hope right here. Those people are not going to change Allah's plan. They're not going to destroy Allah's creation. Allah's creation will be here till Allah wanted to go. They say it's 9 billion years. It's been here for 4.5 billion years or something like that. And it's got another 4.5 to go. Well, that's a long time for us. So we're technically not concerned with trillions, billions of years from now. Why? Because the earth, if the human being just keep messing up, the earth going to shake the human being off. Going to boil him, going to roast him, because the earth is a living organism. You see all the things that's going on in the world today? In Santa Rosa, they just had a fire 2-3 years ago. It just burned the whole city down. Up in Redding, anybody heard of the car fire? The car fire had tornadoes within a fire. You know, the more wind you get at a fire, the more can you imagine that the modern fires, the reason they're burning up so much of California? I saw the governor of California on TV. He was almost crying. He said, man, this is just too much to take. This was just this year. But they've been getting year after year. The fires are getting worse and worse. In Louisiana, they just had 5 hurricanes or what have you come right up the same street almost, right? Just a little while ago. Yeah. Right there, all that Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lake Charles area, here they come. The hurricanes in Florida, all of that stuff, well, the water is hotter. Yeah, it's hotter because it's global warming. You ever heard of that? That means we have to get busy. Because the people who are gaining money from this is not us. Only the people at the top are gaining a few dollars. So the new world that we're living in, or we want to develop, may be a more cooperative type society than a monetary society. You know, money was something at first because you could trade, Capitalism had some benefits for a while, but it don't have no benefits now. When all the money just go up to 4 or 5 people at the top. Concentration of wealth, concentration of resources. That's the monster we have to fight. That's the thing that we have to deal with on the earth that we're living on. And it's our responsibility, because those super rich, I don't believe they're going to do it. Now, we mentioned a few things. I'll mention, and then I'll Sabbihisma Rabbikal Ala. And this is Rabb, conveys not only the idea of fostering or bringing up or nourishing, but also that of regulating, completing, and accomplishing, of evolution of a thing from its crudest state to its highest perfection. Now I'm talking about the human being, but the earth went through that process too. You know, the earth evolved over millions and billions of years to become what it is now. And Allah, Rabbil Alameen, is that reality that created us, that nourishes us all along the way until we evolve. We're talking this today, we're thinking this today, and other people are thinking of it because they're going through a process of evolution and being nourished until they reach a level of excellence. That means technically the excellence of technology, and also spiritual excellence that would demand that they use that technology properly, right? That takes a spiritual evolution. And so Rabbil Alameen, Lord of the worlds, means that that's Allah that created us and nourished us all the way, and technically gave us an assignment. See, Rabb, like Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, all of those characteristics and attributes mean that you have been assigned. You have been assigned to this job. Because Allah knew this was going to happen, because Allah knows everything. See, the past for me and you is one thing, the present is one thing, but the future is another. For Allah, the past, the present, and the future is all the same. Right? Let me go over that again. For Allah, there is no past. Because Allah created time, so it wasn't. Just think about it. And there's no future. For Allah, everything is now. Everything is now. So Allah created us and carried us along from our past in our present for us to recognize and understand what our assignment is, what our mission is, like whether we accept our mission, whether we accept our assignment, right? Whether we do our assignment, whether we complete our assignment, right? And how well we handle that assignment. Allah knows what we're going to do, but Allah gave it to us. Now, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know how we're going to do. That's part of, they said, man, that's cold. If Allah know everything we're going to do and gave us a destiny, Allah gave you the ability to make decisions. You're rewarded a punishment with heaven or hell based on the decisions you make, right? So Allah ain't condemned nobody to nothing. But Allah knows what we're going to do because Allah knows everything. That's what caught me. Allah knows what you're going to do. So you might as well, it's laid out for you. Well, Allah, give me that assignment. He didn't demand you follow that assignment. You just got it. You got the ability. You got the technical know-how. You have the backup. You have all the support systems. Will you do it? That's the only question. So that's our assignment. So takdir, it means to assign a particular role to everything, whether quantitatively or qualitatively. We therefore notice that every object is bound both in the outward and the inward aspect by conditions warranted or fixed by its very nature, and that this condition, or these conditions, are in perfect consonance with the variegated demands of its growth and development. And you hear that over and over again. Evolution, growth, development, increase. So we have to visualize ourselves and see ourselves shaping, forming, and fashioning and evolving this new world that we want to live in. That means that you can think up the world you want to live in and fix it. That way, look how slow the human being is, how fast he is to go to war and how slow he is to move toward peace. It's because the shaitan got hold to him, right? Remember, that's the main enemy. We just never forget, that is our main enemy. The devil, you don't hear people talk about the devil much anymore, right? And they don't talk about all of these disasters and all these viruses going around. You don't hear people talk publicly about the devil hardly anymore, right? Oh, it's this, it's that. They give it a scientific, but we got a different book here. It tells us who the problem is, and I'll close or move toward a close with. And the devil will on the day of judgment, the devil will say, when the matter is decided, surely Allah promised you a promise of truth. I promised you and I failed you. I had no authority over you except that I called you and you obeyed me. So blame me not, but blame yourself. I cannot come to your help, nor can you come to my help. I deny your act of associating me with Allah. Surely for the unjust is a painful chastisement. So that's Shaitan's story. You know that old, the devil made me do it? When you do that on the day of judgment, the devil, Shaitan, gonna jump up and say, hold it, hold it, hold it. I, the devil. You got that book and everything telling you. When the matter is decided, Allah gave you the truth. Allah promised you a promise of truth. I lied to you. What do I do? Deception and lying. That's my business. It's a business I'm in. Right? Me and my whole organization. That's what we do. We trick people. We lie to them. We steal. We create wars and great injustices. That's what we do. Right? That's what the shaitan is saying. When the matter is decided, surely Allah promised you a promise of truth. But I lied to you. I deceived you. But I didn't have no authority over you except I whistled and you came a-running. I called you and you obeyed. So don't blame me. The devil made me do it. Don't blame me. Blame yourself. And I deny your act of associating. The word here is shirk. I deny your act of shirk, associating me with Allah. Surely for the unjust is a painful chastisement. So the shaitan know where his end is. He going to tell, hey man, you did that wrong? You ought to be shaming yourself. And Allah gave you this whole book for you to guide you and gave you hidayah and lead you and showed you the way. Right? Okay. Now, the last thing I want to mention is this. Masjid al-Islam, As-Sabiqun liberation movement. Now, we've all talked about Sabiqun. Those are those who go out first, right? Those who anticipate the things that are going to happen in society. They go and get active and change or improve the situation before anybody else may know about it or before anybody may do anything about it. So we pray that there's less extinctions in the earth. So plants, animals, everything is being extinct. Some frogs are almost extinct, because of all the chemicals and the pollution. And, I remember about 30 years ago, I was reading about the bullfrogs. I don't know if y'all remember bullfrogs or frog legs. In the country, you hear them big old bullfrogs all the time in the bayous and everywhere. So in Pakistan, they would have these fields full of rice and everything, and it has water in it, and the bullfrogs would be out there getting down, making all that noise. And then in Europe, they developed a taste for frog legs. Now, we used to eat frog legs, in the country. So the Pakistanis start cutting the frog legs up, just all they wanted was the frog legs, and pack them on ice and send them to Europe. Pretty soon they had to buy the most insane plant killer, weed killer, to do what? To eat up each bullfrog used to eat about a pound of insects a day. So they didn't eat no insect stuff. So the dummies, for money, started cutting the frogs up, packing them on ice, and sending them to Europe. And after that, they had to buy the insect repellent to kill all the other insects. Remember, they're going to kill all the other insects too. That's why things are going extinct so fast. Then it goes into the soil, and it kills the microbes, the microorganisms down there. They flow in the stream, and the whole natural imbalance is thrown off. The whole natural imbalance is thrown off. So we just wanted to get together for a little while today, and we wanted to know, does anybody have any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? No questions, no comments?
On the way over here, I listened to
Right, right.
Okay. And what basically when you listen to it, everything that you said have talked about in the past.
Right,
Basically that's what it is.
right,
And one of the things that came to my attention was they mentioned that this is a declaration of independence for black people. Now anybody who's listened to our program would know that that's something that you said
right. Oh, yeah.
years ago.
Right.
But I guess the question would be, can you kind of talk about how, because basically what it is an economic plan.
Right.
They're not talking about climate change, not that,
Right.
I'm going to kind of go and read it, but based on the conversation, it's more of an economic plan.
Right, right.
So can you talk about, how that would
Okay.
factor into this?
And it's centered around, okay, if you remember, in 1968, Martin Luther King went to Chicago. And he went there that's what he went there, for an economic program to get people working together, to spend their money together, to cycle the money around, and okay. Now, you never read about it, but the only program like that worked was East Oakland Enterprises in Oakland. It was two main groups in Oakland. It was the Black Panther Party and it was us. Of course, we intermingled a lot. But our program, East Oakland Enterprises, the goal was to do just what we did. We cycle the money, like in the Jewish community, they say money circulates 11 times before it go out. In the black community, money come in on the 1st and the 15th, right? And by the 3rd and by the 17th, the money is gone. It don't circulate. And the Chinese, the Koreans, and the dope man, the liquor store man, all those people get the money. But it does not circulate in the black community. In those days of black independence and black liberation, to solve black people's problems would have been a big step toward the humanities movement, the human potential movement. But right now, if you solve black people's problem, you'd still drown next week, right? If you solve any group of people's problem, it would not serve the earth's problem. So I believe that we ought to cut out all the steps and go directly to making this world a better place, making this place a good place. And that's all what utopia means, a good place. It don't mean heaven or paradise on earth. It means good place. So if we could make a place where it's 80, 90% good, that'd be great. That'd be great. Where most of the people are fed, that would be a good place. Where most people have the health and the facilities they need, that would be a good place, right? So those programs that they're talking about on television and everything are decades behind. And that's the problem with the world, is they're always running behind schedule. Their technology is running way ahead, but they're not allowing psychology or sociology or anything or spirituality control their technology. It's all about money. So that means however we can use this technology to get the most money, that's who's going to win. With that in mind, we'll always be a day late and a dollar short. I'll give you an example that we know about. When we'd have fundraisers here before, Brother Mahmoud Abdul Rauf would come and what have you. And when he started talking against Zionism, boy, the world unleashed on him. They burned down his houses in Mississippi. They did all kind of stuff. And a few people on the radio, they mentioned, when Kaepernick started doing that, well, they can do that now. When Mahmoud did it, let's say 20 years ago, 25 years ago, hey man, you ain't standing up for the flag? You know, and I don't know how much other people make, but each game he played, I think somebody told me he would get about 31,000 per game or something. That's not bad, you know. People now get more, but that wasn't bad. Look at the slowness. Now you can say anything you want. They got the players and the team owners saying, yeah, we got to fix that, you know. And they talking, it's all money. And, you know, Black Lives Matter. Well, remember, we went to all of those things. And I heard the other day, it was on the RT radio. They were saying yesterday, it's terrible that the people doing all those demonstrations, they didn't have an agenda. They didn't have the dialogue. Did you hear that? I said, man, these people is dirty. That's what we was down there telling them. Exactly everything we've been telling them. Now the brainiacs, which are government, but anyway, they say the same thing we say, but it's 10 years behind, 2 years behind. Every sports owner in the world wanted to tell everybody, yeah, take a knee, you know, take an elbow if you want, just lay prostrate, whatever you want to do, go ahead, it's okay. We with you. That's what they do nowadays. The people are hypocrites, and all kind of insane stuff is going on. We don't have to solve the black problem. That ain't going to help nothing. We have to solve humanity. And not only it's a human problem. Now, the human being have to solve the animals' problems and everything because, see, we have authority over them. That's what we have to do. So anyway, I hope that answered the question. But, you know, all of us started off as, remember I talked about the movement. It was freedom rise, it was civil rights, you know, black power, black liberation, you know, and all of that, and then Islam. That is the natural progress that we went through here. But today, we have to solve all humanity's problem. That has to be our goal. So iced tea and all of them, plus after you drink all that iced tea out there in California, you start doing commercials. Wasn't he doing an insurance commercial or something about his cars? You know how I like my cars? Yeah, I've seen it. Anyway, are there any more questions? I excuse, my daughter wanted to make it, but she has she just had an operation not long ago. It's a little Crohn's type thing, so she couldn't make it. So, no more questions or comments? Yes?
When you were the old biodegradable civilizations that were when they had the big buildings, they used to like crumble down and go back to the earth, and now we got the ones that like just stay up and just
Yeah,
around.
right.
Well, I read an article like a couple days ago about someone at Stanford, a researcher. He's basically like creating bricks that are stronger than concrete out of fat-burning mushrooms. Like I just wanted to know like how likely do you think that like that's something that's going to be adopted or even considered?
Okay, those things, they got a lot of things that they can build right now that is tougher than concrete. They got puff stuff they can blow in a thing, you know what I mean? And they got buildings, they could foam it up, go and put a little structure up and foam it up. You know what I mean? To have a place for the windows and all that, and psst, and the whole building will be up. It'll be a foam, airtight building and strong as anything. They got all kind of stuff like that. But our thing is that the world that we live in today, it has to be a mass movement by the overwhelming majority of the society to make the world a good place to live in. And that will come from the people in cooperation. And we'll probably have to do it individually away from governments, because the governments are already established. They don't want you to have a new world. They want their government. So the people are going to have to be very bold. They're going to have to stop for a while asking the government to help the problem. The government, they're ready to sell all the stuff up in Alaska right now. Yeah. So they can go up there and drill. And you see the TV, the poor polar bears walking down the long stretch, ain't got nothing to eat hardly, ain't got no ice to lay on. Hey, man, these people, was it 70-something degrees in the Arctic this year? In the Arctic Circle? The Arctic. And in Greenland, to me, I'm not afraid of all of that stuff, like they ran that scare tactics when we was kids about atomic bombs and all that, and they told us to duck and cover. Can you imagine a 5 or 10 megaton bomb dropping in your city? If a 5 megaton bomb drop here, that means it's a fireball 5 square or circular miles around. And that means it's going to turn people in the shadows all the way up, and I don't know how far away. And then they tell the dummies, me and you, duck and cover under a wooden desk, right? That's what they do. They did. All of us in our age, they used to tell niggas duck and cover. But they scared everybody to death. We're not going to allow this pollution talk and all of that to frighten us, although it's uncomfortable looking at what they're doing. But we're going to face up to our responsibility, inshallah. Any other questions? I hope I halfway answered, but they got tons of new technology that they can do. The new world we're talking about, they can build it right now, physically. But what about the human being? You know, that means we have to change ourselves, taskia bil nafs, and we have to have a system that perpetuates goodness, a system that perpetuates equality. The system in itself perpetuates goodness and equality. That the goal of the system is to do good, right? Like technically the goal of the government should be to make your life easier and better. Now, how's that for a government? That's what a government should do. It should use its authority and its power to help the citizen to live a better life, right? That's the purpose of a government that deals with the community, or the earth has too many people now, you know, just to self-regulate. So we need good governance that pushes to its goal is to push good. Any more questions or comments? Yes?
I want to know, like, what would you recommend for, like, the youth to do? Because they're growing up about to be independent on their own. And what would you advise them to do?
Well, to get a Harry Houdini or somebody to move in to have a Harry Houdini or something. Y'all remember who Harry Houdini? Okay, he was a magician and stuff like that. But no, other than that, the thing is That's exactly what we're working toward, is getting people involved. We don't have any excuses, but you do know probably that everything that we get involved in, somebody pulls it loose. It's we're gonna solve that problem, but it's not gonna be today, because the Quran just told us never think that these people are gonna be successful. Right? So we have hope. After every ayat where they predict evil taking over, there's another ayat following it right up. That don't think this system is going to defeat good. So what you said was true, was about getting people involved, and also getting people a mission or a role. Why are you here? Are you here to watch Disney all day? Are you here to get a super duper phone and sit there watching that thing all the day? People don't look up. People walk right into traffic. Bam! Right? Looking at that phone. They trip over things. They fall over backwards on stuff, just looking at the phone, pushing buttons. In fact, I think that's the culture, right? So one thing we can put hope and energy and salvation. We'll turn into a video game or something, where you just do good, and you have to sit there and do good all day, stuff like that. But reality, we have to give our young people a vision. A vision. Without a vision of where they're going, what the purpose is. Yes.
No, that's right. That's right.
Greetings. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn.
No, go ahead.
I'm an educator in Prince George's County.
Oh, alhamdulillah.
And when you talk about the youth and giving them an opportunity, there is a system that is in place that sets them behind.
Yes.
I teach 6th and 7th grade English. And to be proficient in Prince George's County, for a 6th grader to be considered proficient in English, for 6th grade, which means he or she reads on a 4th or 3rd grade level. That is proficient. That is a system that is designed for Prince George's County youth to always be behind. Because how can you be proficient if you are considered, proficiency means you are 2 grades below your level. Advanced means you are on your level. That is a system that is in place to keep our youth in the distance.
Well, we had a school here for 10 years, and it was called Group Homeschool. Every kid that was here, some university, some have graduated already, and every child that left here was about 2 years ahead of everybody else. Some 3 years. Some of them didn't even, when they left here in the 8th grade, they were so far ahead of everybody out in, it took them years for the system, that's how low the educational system is here. And you talked about reading. We know that reading comprehension is the main for studying, for acquiring knowledge. If you have bad reading comprehension, you won't know what you're reading. You just won't know. And technical and everything is based on reading comprehension, probably above mathematics. Above mathematics. So we understand that how the system works and always have worked, especially for black people. but we're not going to beat ourselves because we're not able to solve the world's problems. Because the book, the Quran, tells us, Allah is talking to the Prophet, that your job is to proclaim and to teach and train the people, and it's Allah's job to call them to account. So what that means is, when we have these little programs like this, that's part of our job. Then we move to a higher level of excellence and organization. And the other thing, if you survive long enough, the things that we do haven't nobody even survived. Because when boss man hit anybody 1 or 2 times, he gonna drop. I don't know if that means anything. But so I agree with you. The thing, sometime vision, if you don't know what you're going to do, where you're going to do, why you want to do it, and none of that, then you don't have no reason for reading. You don't have a reason for studying because, it's more exciting out in the street. Just run the street, sell a little dope, do a little whatever, right? At that age, you don't realize until, I think very few of our people in the 6th grade have a real vision of what they want to do and what it would take to get it done. I don't think, I'll put it this way. In the black days, our teachers always told us, you got to be twice as good to do this and that. People might still say that, but they did it. They made sure, they keep you behind after school. They would drag you up, on education. Yeah.
I mean, you hit it on the nail because that's the point where these parents are believing that their children are advanced because the school system tells them their children are advanced. The 6th grader who's reading on a 5th grade level, the school system tells them they're advanced. And the parents are believing that and sending that message to their child. But what the system is really saying is, this advanced means you're a 6th grader reading on a 5th grade level, and it's considered advanced, but it's not really advanced.
Oh no, we understand. Dr. Rosenthal did the one that's quoted all over the world in 1968. In fact, he did it in Oakland. He got a group of teachers together and told them, you're the best teachers in the Oakland Unified School District. Then they took a group of students and they told them, you're the best students here in Oakland, And then they put them together, and within 1 year, they all advanced about 3 years in 1 year, generally. So they went back to them and told them what they had learned from the study, and they said, well, it wasn't difficult because you gave us the best students in Oakland. They had more ability, said, no, we didn't. We chose their name out of a hat. They said, well, it was us. We're the best teachers in Oakland. I said, no, we chose your name out of a hat too. What was it? It was expectation. They're lowering the children's expectations by lowering the parents' expectation. And they handing it on down. And as long as they expect that, that's what they're going to, when they get to go to a university, they're going to say, you can't come in here with them grades, right? You can't come, or even they give them the grades that are commensurate with high school and junior high and all of that. And they get in college and they're going to walk right out the side door because they can't keep up. You know what I mean? They can't, the society is developing policies or have them develop for us to fail. It's nothing new to fail.
To your point, the parents become complacent, if not ecstatic, about thinking their child is advanced because their sixth grader is reading on a third grade level and they believe that's advanced.
Yeah, that's expectation. They fool the parents and they fool the students, you know. Yeah, no, that's,
So when it comes time for them to apply to college or go out and compete, and then they find out that your complacement or expectations of what your child is not real.
no,
There are exceptions because there are children who are excellent and see, but the average child, provided, given what they are provided through Prince George's County Public Schools, is not equipped to survive.
PG County I look at years ago, they was putting all these new rec centers. They look very shiny and very nice. And the people all moving out of DC to PG County and out the other way. Yeah,
That depends on where in PG County.
Right,
They're
right,
moving to Bowie and
Right.
Mitchellville,
right,
perhaps.
Right.
They're moving to District Heights,
right,
maybe not.
right. The point I'm making is that they're emptying out the city. The city is becoming white. The educational level is coming back up. The educational level, expectation level, all of that in DC is coming back up. The type of teachers you see all kind of white teachers. My kids had very good teachers, some of them are around at some of the schools. But you don't have to worry. In another 5 or 10 years, when almost white people are all running up and down the street here right now in Southeast, you should never see one. That's why I moved to D.C., to Southeast.
And it's the money too, because I've been told and I've confirmed that I can increase my salary by at least 25-30% if I leave PG County and go to DC.
Hey, we have to carry quadruple load, a load of history, a load of the present, load of expectation. We got to carry that all with us as black people because we're talking about fixing the world, but everybody else is on a certain level already, or some people are, and we are over here, right, still living outdoors. So we know what we're up against. But that's the difference between being hopeful and hopeless. We're not hopeless. We're going to just keep trying to do what we can to improve our situation. And if we improve our situation, it improves the world situation. So that's what we want. We want to make a better world starting in this neighborhood. You see what I mean? Yeah, starting with us. I mean, we can't be said we just going to help everybody else and we can't help ourselves, because we need the most help. Everything is deteriorating. When I was younger, you could fight the police, physically fight with police. You can't do that now. They'll shoot you even looking at them. They're just shooting black people. I mean, straight up. They always did, but it's worse now than it ever has been. Even with the cameras, now they just see it on camera. But that's the situation we're living in. And we're going to work as hard as we can, as long as we can, to make a better world. Anyone else? Okay. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Okay. Do we